What's up guys, Lou here for Golf Avenue. We recently published a comparison test where we took TaylorMade's most recent driver and compared it against a model from 20 years ago. The results from this test were surprising to say the least. Since you guys at home seem to appreciate those tests so much, we've decided to tackle another one. This time, we're taking out one of golf's giants, Callaway. We're going to compare Callaway's latest driver release against another model from 20 years ago. Callaway has completely leaned into the AI-driven technology to help with their drivers and their woods. Well, let's use this test as the perfect platform to see just how far AI has taken Callaway over the last 20 years. Please keep in mind that this test is representative of the average golfer, so the numbers we'll be getting and the data we'll be getting is all representative of an average level golfer. Has Callaway made the right choice by going all in with AI? Stick around to find out. But before we do that, let's go pick up our clubs. Alright, so here's the first club we'll be looking at during our test. It's the Callaway Paradym AI Smoke Triple Diamond, or the LS version. In this case, this was released earlier this year by Callaway. It features all their latest innovations such as AI tech, the face is AI built as well. As we said earlier, no other brand has adopted technology as much as Callaway has, which also means that there's nothing traditional about this driver. But this also means that all this AI technology packed in there means that this club is also packed with quite the price tag. At more than $600, we would understand why some golfers might be hesitant to spend that much money on a brand new driver. But this is why we're doing this test today. We want to see, is that $600 really worth your money? Or could you get away with buying something much cheaper from a few years ago that will still deliver decent performance? But before we get to that point where we look at our results and analyze the performance, let's go pick up our second club, the club that we'll be testing against the Paradym AI Smoke. And finally, we're looking at the second club from our test, the Callaway ERC Fusion driver. This driver was released 20 years ago, and of course it's not packed with all the AI innovation that the AI Smoke has, but it still shows a nice touch of innovation, especially when you look at the club head here under the crown, at the back of the crown. We do have a lot of carbon, which is very noticeable of drivers from the turn of the century when companies were starting to experiment more and more with carbon club head, such as this one. So I'm excited to take it on the sim and see how it performs. But before we head to the sim and compare our two drivers, let's go back behind the desk, sit down, and take a closer look at the differences, because as you can see with this one, the club head is much smaller, but you're gonna see it when we're up side by side, the difference is massive. Right away, you should notice that the club head size difference is way more noticeable when we have those two drivers side by side right here. You have the AI Smoke with this more larger 460cc club head, and you have the 300cc club head of the ERC Fusion right here. And the other thing that's pretty obvious is the material used to build each of these clubs. So if we look at the Paradym AI Smoke first, we're gonna notice the club face is made out of aluminum and other metal alloys that allow it to be more receptive at impact and allow the ball to bounce off the club face for more power at impact. Of course, the rest of the club head is mostly made out of carbon, which helps to make the club lighter, to either make the club easier to launch, or to either lower the spin rates depending on what you're trying to do with this trim. In the case of the Triple Diamond here, it would be to lower the spin rates of the club at impact. And the other thing that you'll notice with the Paradym AI Smoke is the beautiful paint job at the bottom of the club head, this kind of hazy blue and white tints. It's very unique, but Callaway just nails it with that one, and it looks superb in your bag and in your hands when you're teeing off. On the other hand, we've got the Callaway ERC Fusion, which also incredibly features carbon on the club head. And I say incredibly because drivers from these years around 2004 or the turn of the century didn't really typically feature carbon in their construction. But this was the first one for Callaway, or at least one of the first ones featured so much carbon, especially if you look at the top of the head, at the back of the crown, a lot of carbon on there. But we still find a lot of titanium built in the club face and the front of the club head, and also at the bottom of the sole, there's a good bit of titanium still left in there. Tech-wise, if you're going to look at the ERC Fusion versus the Paradym AI Smoke, I think one driver has a clear edge in that department, and that would be, of course, the more recent Paradym AI Smoke. When it comes to the ERC, it's pretty limited when it comes to technology. We were barely able to find anything about it, so we'll go with the assumption that there's really nothing techie-wise to highlight about the ERC Fusion. But on the other hand, the Paradym AI Smoke is packed with all the technology you can think of and all the innovation. Clearly, the Paradym AI Smoke has the edge when it comes to technology, but does it mean that it also has the edge when it comes to performance? Well, there's only one way to find out, and you guys have waited long enough. So let's head to our TrackMan powered simulator at the office and see how those clubs perform. So just before we get started, let's take a closer look at the specs of our drivers. As you can see here, we've got the triple diamond in the 9-degree. Shaft-wise, we're using a Project X Denali Blue. It came with the model. With this one, we didn't adjust anything. It is the stock shaft for this model. We've got our ERC here with a 9-degree of loft. It says here at the bottom of the sole. And if we look at the shaft, we've got a Callaway RCH here system. That was the stock model that was offered with this driver, the stock shaft. And it's still the shaft that we have set up in there because, as you know, at Golf Avenue, we don't mess with the shaft, we don't mess with anything. We sell you the clubs as they are. All right, guys, so we just finished testing our Paradym AI Smoke Triple Diamond driver. I do have some mixed feelings towards it. When I was using it on the range on the simulator, the results are not great. There was a lot of very strong power draws, which is not my typical trajectory, so it was quite surprising for me to see it. I did manage to hit some straighter shots, not a lot of fades, not a lot of slices, and fade is my natural trajectory, so that was a bit surprising. To be fair, that can be attributed to the simulator that might have an issue, but to that point, I just took it out on a course to try it out and play around with it, at least a few holes with it. And there the performance was great. I was able to find the fairway. It was consistent from one strike to the next. If it was offline, it was definitely my own fault. It wasn't something I had to do with the club or that I had discomfort with it. So it was really perplexing to me. I have to say, course-wise, it performs great, really reliable. But when I was hitting on the range, I just couldn't find my comfort with it. I couldn't seem to find a consistent trajectory. So all this to say that the Paradym AI Smoke Triple Diamond driver is your typical modern driver. It will provide you with forgiveness on off-center strikes, because I know I didn't hit the center on all my strikes, and it would also provide you with plenty of distance. Honestly, I wasn't giving my best swings to this club. I was just making sure I was making good contact with it and trying to hit the fairway, and it was still carrying the ball very far, even probably close to what I would normally carry my own driver that is fitted to my needs. Obviously, this one is not fitted to my needs. It's a club that we're just trying to give you an impression of what you can get if you just buy this club in stock with us. So now that I've given you my comments on the Paradym AI Smoke Triple Diamond, it's time to go back in time and test out the ERC Fusion. All right, now that I'm done with the ERC Fusion, I'm able to give you a bit of feedback on it. When I tested it out on the range, it felt great. It was really hard to hit anything that was offline. It felt like I was able to keep straight pretty consistently, a little fade, which is my natural trajectory as we've established before, so that was really fine with me. But when I took it on the course to play with it, I had the same feeling that I had with the Triple Diamond, but it was reversed. It was just hard to find the fairway, I felt like, with it. It was hard to be consistent. It was definitely not as forgiving, especially on off-center strike, because as you can see, naturally, the club face is way smaller, so anything that would be off-center or anything that's not perfect will be much more costly. However, I gotta say, when I nailed it, it was incredible. It matched the performance of the Paradym AI Smoke. I was able to hit a nice fade with it that started on the left end and finished on the right end, going around the sand trap that you're gonna see when we show you on screen. I was able to do what I wanted with this club, but I couldn't be as consistent as I was with the Paradym AI Smoke, especially once I took it on the course. On the range, I have to give it to the ERC Fusion, but what I will do is I'll go on the range once again with both clubs just to see if I can get more data, and I'll be able to test my original theory to see, is the ERC really that good and still matches up to the Triple Diamond, or was I just getting skewed data maybe? So let me go back and hit those clubs again on the sim, just see what sort of performance I can get out of them, and then I'll meet you guys again at the FC so we can break down all the data that we've gathered from our test. Alright guys, we've made it back to the FC and behind our desk. It's time to take a closer look at the performance for both our drivers and see which one truly came out on top. If you've watched our TaylorMade 20-year-old driver comparison, you know just how evenly matched those two drivers were when we did our post-test analysis. By the way, if you haven't checked that out already, make sure you subscribe to Golf Avenue's channel to be up to date on the latest releases and all our comparison tests. But back to our test, we're glad to notice that the trend we observed with the TaylorMade driver is not a common thing across the industry. That's right, we've got good news for you from this test. That's right, this latest Callaway test we did showed that innovation does play a key role for your driver, especially when it comes to dispersion and forgiveness. But let's take a closer look at the data just to see how much of an impact innovation has had on performance. So let's look at the performance of our club by first looking at the distance category. And we'll start with the carry distance from both clubs. And when you look at that metric, you quickly see that we almost have identical numbers for both clubs. Actually, the AI Smoke is only 0.2 yards shy of the 223-yard mark of the ERC Fusion. But it's when we look at the total distance metric where we see a proper difference between our two drivers. It's nothing massive, but it's something that would catch the eye of someone who's looking to upgrade their driver. The difference in total distance is almost 6 yards, which is definitely notable, but I wouldn't say that it's massive enough to justify the gap in prices between those two drivers. But the question needs to be asked at this point. How come two drivers from 20 years apart are able to produce the same carry distance even though one of them is packed with way more technological perks? And if we ask this first question, we have to follow it up with why then do they end up producing different total distance metrics? Well, the only way to answer that is taking a closer look at the rest of the numbers. The best place to look to start with is ball and club head speeds. If we first look at club head speed, we're gonna see that they almost have the exact same data, as one club hit 97.6 miles per hour and the other one did 97.4. And in that case, it was the AI Smoke who got the better of the club head speed department. And since there's barely any difference in the data when it comes to club head speed for both our clubs, this definitely doesn't explain discrepancy in total distance. So let's take a closer look at the ball speed. We clearly see that the AI Smoke has the edge in that department with a slight advantage of 3 miles per hour. Obviously that's not massive, but it's enough to make a difference, especially when it comes to total distance. And the AI Smoke's advantage when it comes to ball speed over the club head speed that were even for both clubs can be explained with the AI innovations that Callaway has invested in over the last few years to make their club so fast and so explosive at impact. Additionally, we can bring more context to the performance of both of our clubs by looking at spin rates and launch angles. In the case of the AI Smoke, of course, we're getting low spin rates and very low launch angles. The low spin rates were to be expected because we are testing a triple diamond variation of the Paradym AI Smoke driver, and the triple diamond variation being naturally a low spin variation of their main driver. So combining low spin rates and low launch angles for the AI Smoke creates balls that won't necessarily travel as far, but once they hit the ground, they'll roll on forever. Case in point, the AI Smoke had 40 yards of roll once it hit the ground the first time. In the case of the ERC Fusion, it still managed to produce the same carry distance, but using a little different approach. It did launch the ball higher at 12.6 degrees, which is very close to the 13 or the 14 degree launch angle, which is typically considered the optimal launching angles. And it did produce very low spin rates at around the 2000 RPM mark, which is quite impressive for a driver that is definitely not made to lower your spin rates. It's just a regular model from a few years ago, so there was not really any big attention given to lowering the spin rates, much like the Triple Diamond did at around the 1700 mark. So now we know how and why the Paradym AI Smoke produced the longer strikes of the two drivers that we had today. It's interesting to dive into hypotheticals and see what would happen if we were to swap the launch angles and the spin rates for both our drivers. Of course, we're speaking all in hypotheticals here, but it's an interesting exercise to better understand how those clubs perform. So starting with the ERC Fusion, if we were to give it the launch angle and the spin rates of the AI Smoke, we can easily imagine that the carry distance of the ERC would be shorter. It would naturally be shorter just because it didn't produce the same ball speed, so naturally the ball wouldn't explode as fast off the club face at impact. It wouldn't carry as far through the air just because it's also not launching as high, so it wouldn't get the same air time as it did with its original data. The only saving grace that the ERC would have in that scenario is that it would probably benefit from a greater rollout than it did in our original test, but the fact that it would travel less distance to start with is meaningful, and I don't think the rollout would cover the distance that it would be losing through the air with the lower launch angle and lower spin rates. If we were to give the AI Smoke the launch angle and the spin rates of the ERC Fusion, I do think that we'd see an uptick, especially in the carry distance department. On the other end, when it comes to total distance, I don't believe that we'd see something major in terms of difference. It would probably be even a bit shorter just because of the fact that the rollout wouldn't be as massive and as aggressive as it is with the lower launch angle and lower spin rates. So all of this test was to say that the Paradym AI Smoke clearly has an advantage and an edge over the model that came out 20 years ago, the ERC Fusion. The AI Smoke pushed the ball further than the ERC Fusion without a doubt, and in my personal opinion, was much more forgiving and kept the ball much straighter in terms of dispersion. I know for a fact that I hit some less than ideal strikes with the AI smoke, but I still managed to keep those balls very close to the fairway or either not too far off the line that we were aiming for. And the penalty distance-wise was definitely not too important or too egregious. And the losses that we would get in terms of distance with off-center strikes were really negligible at best. As for the ERC, off-center strikes or missed hits would lose a ton of distance, and most of them would also end up offline, either end up in a slice or a really bad hook. Now, is the margin between those two drivers important enough that it would motivate someone to spend close to $600 to a brand new driver? Well, in some cases, yes, for sure. And to those people, we say don't forget to trade in your old clubs with Golf Avenue. We love to get your used golf clubs in the warehouse, and we love to help you find your next great driver by helping you knock some of the dollars off its price tag. And for all you golfers that are not willing to spend the big bucks for gains that could only be marginal, we've got the ERC and tens of other thousands of golf clubs on the website, both used and brand new, that are only waiting to find your bag at your price. So head to golfavenue.com today to get your hands on them. And of course, if you enjoyed this comparison and want to know more about the clubs that were featured in it today, make sure you head on over to golfavenue.com and check out the complete blog dedicated to this video. Before we let you go, we simply want to remind you to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to Golf Avenue's channel so you're always up to date on our latest comparison tests. We've got more of those coming your way, but let's know down in the comments what you'd like to see. Who knows, your idea could be our next video. And as always, for Golf Avenue, I've been Lou. Until next time.